day and night, and when Edelyn and the rest of the gang were there and his breathing stopped, well, that's the time of death. But oh no, physiologically it's not possible. His heart went on and on. I've never experienced anything like that. So I want to say I'm so grateful to have had our paths cross, and just really want to honor all of you and this energy. And didn't know Michael that well, but I feel like I really do have a sense of him. So thank you.
Providing us with food today. She owns Real Food Daily Restaurant, and has known Michael for
20.
20 years, even before she had Real Food Daily Restaurant, when she was still delivering food to the store.
Yes, so my story about Michael certainly concerns both food and business, which, as we've heard today, was a great passion of his. I've known him for about, 20 years, because in 1990, I met my husband, who's here today, Robert Jacobs. And somewhere later in that year, the relationship took a serious turn. And I was flipping through a magazine called Buzz Magazine. For you Angelinos who've been around for 20 years, that was a very hip, happening magazine, just the kind of magazine that Service and Taylor would put an advertisement in. And they had this beautiful ring that I still wear today. It was the tension ring. And I ripped that page out of the magazine, gave it to Robert, and I said, "Here, you need to get serious." So a couple of months later, he shows up on my doorstep with the tension ring and a proposal. And shortly after that, I guess I went over to Service Taylor at the West Side Pavilion and got sized. Well, I had the ring, and my daughter was just asking me, how do you size a ring? So that was the magic that Michael knew how to do as a jeweler, because the ring was the perfect size. Of course, we had to go back, and we got married, and we had to go back and purchase the wedding ring from Michael. And he became a friend, of course, as I'm sure he did with many of you in this room today. I, at that time, had this home delivery service where I cooked good, home-cooked, organic, vegan meals, and Michael immediately signed up the first day that I met him. And I heard all the stories over the years as all the people at Service and Taylor shared this one meal that was supposed to be for Michael, but that he was always sharing with everybody else. And I remember that we invited him over to our house, Robert and I, because I too thought he was a cute guy and didn't understand why he wasn't married. And I was trying to hook him up with one of my girlfriends, and I remember she thought he was very adorable, but she said, "But he's very opinionated and bossy." Needless to say, it didn't go anywhere, and I think that Susan was lurking out there on the horizon, so he knew where his heart was. In 1993, I opened my first restaurant, Real Food Daily, and Michael Taylor, along with one other person in the hundreds of people that I served in my home delivery, stepped up and became a partner. And when he handed over the check to invest in Real Food Daily, he looked me in the eye and he says, "I really believe in what you're doing." And he remained a loyal shareholder 20 years later. Over the years, there have been a string of pearls, which I would have worn today, but they need to be restrung, and a couple of family rings that I've inherited. And so this year, I had one of those rings that my mother has passed on to me early, and I took it into Service and Taylor, made an appointment with Michael. I wanted him to look at it, and he helped me with it. And then I mailed him a gift card, because I said, I wanted to reciprocate for the help that he gave me. And so I saw him a couple of times this year. He would show up at Real Food Daily in Santa Monica in sort of the latter part of the evening, and I was fortunate enough to be there and see him. And he didn't eat a meal. He went for the chocolate chip cookies because he had a passion for my chocolate chip cookies, which are here today. And I just remember that, Michael always had this twinkle in his eye and this beautiful smile on this beautiful face. And he will be very much missed by me and by all of us. Thank you.
No, let me finish the. I just can't help myself. I'm Ann's husband, and she just doesn't know about the 2-month gap between the time she gave me the advertisement from Buzz Magazine and the time she got the ring. And so she might as well hear the story now because it's about Michael. But I, at the time, had just watched this extraordinary documentary about how value-less diamonds actually were. It was all about the De Beers family, and I thought, this is a horrible scam. And then my girlfriend at the time gives me this ring with this tension, the tension ring, which Richard probably remembers. And so I thought, oh, geez, this is what I've got to do. So I march up there to the West Side Pavilion over here in West LA, and I didn't know this store or what the ring was about. And there's Michael Taylor, and I asked, do you have this ring? And I hold up the ad, and he pulls out the ring. And for about the next 2 months, I went back and forth to the West Side Pavilions maybe a half a dozen or a dozen times, and I'd see Michael Taylor there. And it wasn't so much about the ring as, should I do this or not? And Michael was encouraging me, of course you should do this. What are you talking? And I thought, well, I'm in sales. I thought, this guy just wants to sell me this $2,000 ring. That was without the diamond, by the way. But I just want to say that it was after 2 months, numerous visits, hours and hours pacing up and down the West Side Pavilion. Should I or shouldn't I? It was Michael Taylor who convinced me that I should. And as a result, we have 2 beautiful, extraordinary children. Hallie's in the back, and my little boy's ice skating or playing soccer or something, but he'll be home. But that was, this union was, I have to credit Michael Taylor with talking me into it. And I bought the ring from him. It was a great ring. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Carlos Luso. I'm not very good at this. My relationship with Michael was started about 14 years ago when Maggie started working there, and my relationship with him was more indirect. I didn't see him very often. I didn't talk to him on a regular basis, but I'd hear all the stories that Maggie would come home and she would tell me about long discussions she'd have with Michael, from everything from spiritual quests to the best beer in town. So I knew a lot about him and stuff, but we just talked a lot about business. Occasionally, I would have the opportunity to talk to him about anything. You know how it was with him when you started talking to him. You'd learn something. You'd always come away with something that would give you food for thought, or maybe even something that would change your life. And it was the case when he insisted. He was always a big Eckhart Tolle follower. He read all his books and stuff, and he always told Maggie that I should read this book. And for a long time, I was like, yeah, it sounds really interesting, but I'd never seemed to find the time to do it and stuff. And finally, one day I bought The Power of Now, and I read it, and it made a huge difference in my life. The book, when I read it, it clicked. It just changed my way of thinking from being anxious and fearful of things, and